Inside of the 4th tallest building inside of the verse, 2 floor masters are introduced to everyone before their fight. It's shown that the Grim Creeper himself, the one and only Hisoka Morrow, is pitted up against Chrollo Lucilfer in their first match as a floor master. As we all know from the anime and his goal of taking down the spiders, Hisoka's lifetime dream of wanting this battle has finally been realised. He makes it extremely clear to the Spider Boy that he doesn't want the match to become a simple sparring session, to which Chrollo agrees, stating that this will indeed be a battle to the death. But just before we do go any further, if you guys want me to keep covering these battles that happen throughout the Hunter manga, like the stuff with Kurapika or the princes, then push this video to 10k likes and I'll make sure to cover each individual battle that happens inside of the Succession arc as it continues releasing, of course. Also make sure to subscribe with that notification bell on so you don't miss out on the latest drops, but enough of me barking on as per usual, let's get into the battle inside of Heaven's Arena. Standing there, separating the fighters, the judge explains that weapons are indeed allowed in this fight, then quickly initiates the battle. Instantly, as the battle begins, Chrollo pulls out his book while Hisoka in tandem readies a card. In a flash, Chrollo reveals a control antenna before inserting it into the back of the judge's neck. So this is actually another spider's technique, the number 6 Shalnark's Nen ability, called Black Voice. Having seen this ability before, Hisoka realised that Chrollo was actually evading him after the exorcism, because remember, you know, like what happened with the train and all earlier on in the series, in order to prepare for their fight now. Like he went around amassing abilities he thought he'd need to take down Hisoka comfortably. Cheekily, Chrollo then reveals yet another antenna, showing his opponent that he has the ability to control him if subdued, before he demands the judge to attack Hisoka. Quite comfortably though, our beautiful pink-haired goon head kicks the judge while getting ready for Chrollo to close in for a strike. However, the spider takes him off guard by pulling a feint. Instantly appearing above Hisoka, Chrollo unleashes a brutal flurry of stomps. As Hisoka barely manages to block the incoming barrage, he ponders on how exactly the antenna ability works and if it can control more than a singular person at once. With Chrollo still continuing his assault, it's revealed that Hisoka attached the bungee gun from his own foot to the judge's chest, and because of that, he activated the ability Elastic Glove, pulling the target at max speed towards them, allowing Hisoka to then escape Chrollo's line of sight. Chrollo quickly dodges and directs the judge towards his opponent again, who realizes that the spider is using the strategy with the antennae to constantly put him on edge as he has an insta-kill method. Absolutely loving this feeling swelling up inside of him though, Hisoka rejoices and slashes the judge's neck with one of his cards. Yet, and taking him by surprise, there's a small blast from the judge's chest, causing Hisoka to reactively use bungee to rappel to the ceiling. Standing behind the fallen judge, Chrollo's hands reveal 2 symbols placed upon them. On the right hand, he has a moon shape with a minus sign in the middle, and on his left, a sun shape with a plus sign in the middle. This technique is called the Sun and Moon Paired Destruction. Confused, Hisoka wonders how it's possible for him to use an ability with 2 hands while not even holding the book that possesses said ability. It's explained that Chrollo's Sun and Moon ability impresses the mark of the moon on his right and the sun on his left. If the 2 symbols touch, they cause an explosion. He can impress these marks instantly, which will cause a small blast, but to produce a devastating blast, he has to touch the target for 3 to 5 seconds. Continuing and giving us a reason for how he managed to use an ability even though the book was closed, Chrollo reveals the ability Double Face Bookmark Theme, which allows him to maintain an ability by bookmarking its pages even if the book is closed. Accordingly, he can also have a bookmark on one ability and have it open to another, allowing him to use both abilities at the same time. Hisoka, who guessed that he could probably use 3, not just 2 abilities because the bookmark counts as one itself, inquires more, but it's actually shown that the bookmark isn't a stolen ability. It's Chrollo's own ability that he came up with in combination with the book. Basically, it's an ability inside of a theft type ability to use 2 stolen techniques at once. Chrollo though, just straight up wants to use hands and mainly does this because the real advantage is not having to hold the book. Then, as things start to heat back up, Chrollo declares that if Hisoka keeps this up, he'll set a new record for the number of abilities Chrollo's used on someone. Taking it one step further though, like the man ain't done yet, Chrollo reveals yet another ability, Order Stamp Proof of Humanity. This is like pretty similar to the previous ability, but unlike Shalnark's ability, Order Stamp manipulates puppets. Black Voice is the superior as it gives total control, but due to its higher level of control, it's limited to 2 people at a time. Order Stamp though is a much simpler ability when it comes to control, and because of that he can manipulate many. With the bookmark reappearing, Chrollo marks another page in his book while explaining to Hisoka that he's already seen this ability before. Using gallery fake, divine left hand, demonic right hand, he makes a copy of the dead judge before, as you could probably assume, he uses the stamp ability on the forehead of the copy. He explains that unlike himself, the former owner of Order Stamp didn't consider a corpse and a puppet similar inanimate objects, so while a corpse can't be controlled with the ability, a copy of it can. Telling the copy to stand, Chrollo explains that for the original owner, once the puppet had been beheaded, it was no longer a puppet. Which honestly is super interesting. Like, I really love how just in depth each technique inside of Hunter x Hunter gets. You can compare it to like a binding vow in some ways with JJK, like to some aspects of it. Yeah, I find with JJK, the less specific you are about a binding vow or with one, the more broken it can actually be. Whereas here with Hunter x Hunter, I feel like the conditions can either hinder or help someone depending on the scenario and situation they actually find themselves in. With that all out of the way though, Chrollo commands the puppet to break Hisoka, claiming that a puppet usually created by copying a human reacts to kill orders depending on the original personality of the human. Though, as we've just seen, if the command is made more simple, they will always focus on doing that exact task until completion. Not bothered by one puppet, Hisoka easily twists the copy's head off and Chrollo confirms that this stops the puppet, causing Order Stamp to disappear. Yet, if you've noticed like Hisoka just did, the puppet itself still remains, which is for the simple fact that he hasn't deactivated Gallery Fake. So when he finally does vanish, Hisoka will be able to confirm that Chrollo's abilities have deactivated. Knowing that at least one more ability still remains, one more as well, which is actually like crazy. Damn, Hisoka's only got the legendary bungee gum. I don't know how in the world he's gonna win here. Maybe he could do some of that creepy stuff like twerk on Chrollo for a bit to freak him out. But I fully doubt he's even gonna do that. Chrollo's probably too old for him to act that way. Anyway, revealing this next ability either way, Chrollo shows opposing arrows on each hand. This is called Convert Hands Transfer Student. If Chrollo touches a target with his right hand, it will take his form, and vice versa with his left, and touching the target with both hands will cause the two to switch forms. Thinking on the spot, Hisoka wonders if Chrollo would be able to make a copy using Gallery Fake's hand marks, but realizes that having to hold the book would get in his way. With all of this being done to just defeat Hisoka, Chrollo explains one more thing, and the most important bit of information. If an ability's original owner dies, it disappears from his book, and can never be used again. Yet, one of the abilities just explained remains in this book, even after the owner's death. Initially confused, Hisoka quickly comes to the realization that it involves Nen becoming stronger after death. Which, if you remember back to the fight with Gon and Pito, her Nen ability, like this one stated in the book, actually stayed around after her death, and if I'm not wrong, was also stronger at that exact point, but because of how broken Gon was, it wasn't really visible to us at the time. The ability in question here is that of the Sun and Moon technique. The original owner was an elder of Meteor City who had used his ability to turn one of the residents into a bomb to deliver a message. In addition, and just like Chrollo, the elder didn't see a difference between humans and puppets. So pretty much, and just like Hisoka confirms, once marked with the Sun and Moon, it cannot be removed until it explodes, even if his book is closed or put away. With Chrollo entirely confident in his coming victory, he asks Hisoka if he still wants to continue, with the big beautiful boy happily saying yes. Beginning to move now, Chrollo thinks that humans are indeed interesting. Quickly, he activates his bookmark ability and leaps backwards towards the crowd. Having gained some distance, he pulls out Black Voice, pulling out two of his antennae at the same time. Not bothered at all though, like Hisoka just wants to throw some hands right now. Man happily chases him through the arena, before darting up through the audience members to keep following. He knows that if he gets too close, the antennae could prove fatal, but if he doesn't attack, then he'll fall straight for Chrollo's trap. As he approaches the spider, a giant man controlled by Chrollo jumps in the way, completely blocking Hisoka's vision. Thinking that Chrollo had darted left, Hisoka comfortably takes down the larger dude, but annoyingly, another controlled man leaps out towards him. Figuring that he's now used both antennae to control the attacking men, Hisoka dispatches the attacking one, but due to the momentary lack of sight on Chrollo, he lost his exact location. Beginning to get troubled, Hisoka tries deducing the order of his moves. Surely he used Black Voice, then bookmarked it, activated Convert Hands, transformed into someone else with his left hand, moved the bookmark to Convert Hands, then closed the book to lie in wait. With floods of terrified spectators sprinting for the exit, Hisoka notices both antennae are gone and guesses that Chrollo reeled them in with something like a fishing line. Noticing some of the audience members have been duplicated, Hisoka realizes that Gallery Fake must be activated, with Convert Hands deactivated, and that Chrollo has taken another person's clothes to disguise himself. At that moment, a horde of audience members suddenly begin jumping and dashing towards Hisoka, all with visible stamps on their foreheads. With them getting closer, Hisoka tries figuring out Chrollo's set of moves. He's sure Chrollo would have had to open the book to gallery fake, bookmark it, create a crowd of copies, activate order stamp, then finally command all of them to break Hisoka. He guesses that there must be 50 or so puppets and more who haven't been given commands yet. With the incoming barrage, Hisoka thinks quickly and activates bungee gum to filling himself up towards the ceiling. In some DayZ level of horde mentality, all of the puppets climb on top of one another, reaching and grabbing and diving at Hisoka, doing their best to try and break him. Being caught up with the waterfall of dolls, Hisoka is taken off guard as Chrollo suddenly appears behind him, his outfit changed and acts as if he's going to throw a punch, but quickly changes at the last second to kick Hisoka in the back of the head, sending him falling to the ground below. Floating there in the air though, Hisoka exclaims that he absolutely loves this feeling. Having landed on the ground, he rises while fending off a plethora of puppets. Using this to his advantage, Chrollo darts in and out of the mess, constantly jabbing and kicking Hisoka over and over again. Knowing that he needs to slim down the number of dolls, Hisoka continues and manages to dispatch 2 of the puppets while considering what Chrollo's next plan of action will be. Suddenly, Chrollo appears from above, ready to strike down exactly like last time. Hisoka guesses that Chrollo probably knows what he's about to do, but goes through with it either way, and activates his bungee gum from his left hand, connecting it to the severed head. He then flings the head towards Chrollo in an attempt to stop the attack. However, he easily manages to dodge it in midair before once again stomping down on Hisoka, sending him face first into the floor. Having prepared himself though, Hisoka quickly retaliates by using bungee gum from his left leg on the other head, striking Chrollo in the face with it. So, for all of the curious people out there, the average adult male head weighs around 7 to 8 kgs, or as much as a professional bowler's bowling ball. After striking Chrollo with his severed head from his left leg, Hisoka uses the other doll's head attached to his left hand and forcefully strikes the spider's other side. Rising back to his feet once again, he notices another barrage of puppets charging towards him. Using the doll's head as a weapon, the absolutely yoked up Hisoka whips it around, instantly beheading any of the approaching clones. Spotting Chrollo in the crowd, Hisoka tries attacking him, throwing the head forth, but he easily sidesteps the attack while disappearing back into the group. Hisoka realizes that if he dispatches all of the puppets, Chrollo won't have to maintain the ability anymore, and can go back to making more copies with the bookmarked gallery fake. As a result, he whittles down all of the fodder clones, leaving one standing, but disarms it, literally, while taking it hostage to limit Chrollo's actions. In his eyes, Chrollo can either keep order stamp activated and give a new command to the puppets lying in wait, or deactivate the ability, begin making more puppets with gallery fake, and then use order stamp again or convert hands to change his appearance. Not gonna lie, Togashi is a freaking genius. Writing a script with COVID as well has been a complete mind trip for me. Like, it's honestly so confusing at points trying to write out these abilities. Everything is just so in depth, so I hope I was able to convey the use of the techniques correctly and all that kind of jazz. By the way, me continuing, me and my dyslexic ass loves to mess things up. However, the stamp on the puppet's forehead disappears, so Hisoka assumes that Chrollo has gone with a second option, which in his eyes is an even bigger force of people, allowing him to safely pick up a new disguise. Hisoka continues to consider Chrollo's next action and guesses that if he's making copies while on the move, he'll go where he already has copies ready. As he suspected, he spots Chrollo in the audience and dashes towards him, sending a clone head in his direction. Easily dodging the head once more, Hisoka notices Chrollo has both hands covered and considers the possibility that Chrollo isn't using order stamp or convert hands, but has the black voice phone in his pocket. As Hisoka continues his assault, swinging and doing his best to predict Chrollo's movements, he releases his gum from the floor, which he had also attached to the back of several audience members. As per Gum Shrink, the people randomly go flying towards the spider, taking him completely by surprise. With Chrollo being mugged by a bunch of random sticky clones, Hisoka takes the opportunity and hurls his head towards him, forcing Chrollo to jump into his preset trap, catching his left foot with bungee gum. With Chrollo completely unable to dodge, he throws his head straight into Chrollo's back, before then, with the other hand, slamming him down onto the ground below, completely and utterly destroying him with the impact. As Chrollo's body lies there, bloody and broken, as you suspected, it's revealed that it was actually an audience member made to look like Chrollo. Hisoka is confused about how he even made a copy of himself with convert hands and manipulated the dude with black voice while the bookmark was still on convert hands, but quickly realizes that the keys to the problem must be the sun and moon ability. Up until now, he had been worried about the mark being permanent until it explodes, but that isn't it. The real issue is that a puppet marked with the ability won't vanish. Remembering Chrollo's previous statement about the Sun and Moon ability taking up 2 hands, he realizes that when another ability is bookmarked with the book held in his right hand, he can still use the Sun and Moon to make the mark of the Sun with his left hand. Chrollo would also said that once a copy vanishes, Hisoka could conclude that Gallery Fake had been deactivated, but he never said that Hisoka could conclude that Gallery Fake is still in use while the copy remains. So most likely his chain of command won't be what it was before, which was activate Gallery Fake, bookmark it, close the book, create a crowd of copies, activate order stamp, then command them all to break Hisoka, but it's more likely to actually be activate Gallery Fake, bookmark it, then close the book, create a crowd of copies, activate the Sun and Moon, and press the Sun mark on the copies, deactivate either or both of them, and because remember how the Sun and Moon has a post-death nen, it won't vanish, therefore it allows him to freely activate order stamp, then he finally commands them all to break Hisoka, which is just the biggest mind trip of having to actually figure that out mid-battle. Just goes to show how strong Hisoka actually is. The fact that this man has one ability with his bungee gum and he's able to take on Chrollo, who just has a plethora of amazing techniques he can use. Anyway, because of the additional steps involved in Chrollo's plan, Hisoka realizes that there are fewer puppets than he had initially thought, more likely around 20 or 30. Looking around, he notices that most of the audience has remained, since they think they'll be out of the range of the fight. He realizes that Chrollo won't have too much more time because the paramedics and security will arrive in 10 minutes, and the remaining puppets will be mistaken for the injured, resulting in them being taken away before he can use them. Randomly, a bunch of audience members begin to flee, running for their lives as others chase them down. Hisoka guesses that Chrollo has given certain puppets instructions in order to confuse the crowd and create further chaos from it. Surrounded by the spectators, the announcer lets everyone know that the paramedics and security are on their way, so just stay calm. Interfering in the broadcast though, an unknown person grabs the headset and commands all of the dolls to break Hisoka. All of a sudden, hundreds of clones begin charging down towards Hisoka, clambering over all of the barriers and sprinting across the open arena. Still holding the head in his hand, Hisoka, who's absolutely fiending that good right now, readies himself for the incoming showdown. Sending out 5 or so strands of bungee gum from his fingers on his right hand and attaching them to the chests of 5 puppets, he twirls the massive puppets together in the air and uses them as a human hammer to push back any puppets that get too close. With the dolls being too fragile, Hisoka's weapon eventually breaks to bits, but almost instantly after he attempts to form another while fending off even more puppets single-handedly. With one more jumping at him from behind, it's shown that Chrollo had stood in wait amid the audience using Black Voice to give a specific doll commands. With Hisoka having retrieved the head once more, Chrollo activates his Sun and Moon ability, commanding it to explode. Caught completely off guard, the head detonates in Hisoka's hand and wipes out 4 of his fingers. In shock from his missing fingies, an even larger explosion goes off behind him. And because of this, Hisoka quickly realizes what Chrollo just did. Back earlier in the fight, when Hisoka had dispatched those 2 clones of their heads, Chrollo pretended to be reeling from the hit, but was actually keeping track of the body and had turned it into a maximum power bomb. Afterwards, he had imprinted a random audience member with the mark of the moon and manipulated them with Black Voice to touch the mark of the sun on the body, resulting in an explosion of both the body and its head, which Hisoka held. Sadly, for our fingerless Hisoka, his gum that had previously attached from his left hand to the ceiling had gone, but he throws that all aside and uses what's left of his bungee gum to bring a puppet towards him, before popping off its head. Becoming surrounded once again, he uses the body to bash away any approaching puppets, then as the horde starts closing in, shoots a strand of gum from his left leg to the upper tier of the stadium, pulling him to some safety. The horde of puppets again amass themselves like before on that Daisy spec to pursue Hisoka, but he pushes them back using a variety of bungee abilities and continues to flee. Not wanting him to flee, Chrollo gives a command to a bunch of the puppets, telling them to get to the second floor, find Hisoka, and to self-destruct when they get right next to him. Suddenly, multiple puppets leap off the balcony right next to Mr. Morrow and bring their hands together, causing a devastating explosion that sends a burnt Hisoka flying across the stadium. With him now falling down towards the spectators below, it's shown that Hisoka even lost a part of his leg from the blow, and due to that, he goes to use bungee gum with his other leg to escape. However, Chrollo from the other side of the stadium had begun hurling audience members towards him, causing Hisoka to lose his grip with bungee and begin falling again. Having fallen onto the ground below now, the horde quickly begins surrounding and diving onto Hisoka, leaving our pink creep with no other option than to bring his arms closed as an enormous explosion of puppets erupt around him. Nearby, and just a few blocks away from Heaven's Arena, a reporter states that a massive explosion has just occurred, as smoke is seen billowing from the top of the tower. Hundreds of people flee from the bottom, running in the street below, while at the same time, firemen and paramedics slowly make their way to the warlike scene. Apparently, this entire battle has happened with a members-only audience, and that one fighter is believed to be responsible for bringing a bomb into the arena. Finally, the reporter mentions that there have been several casualties, including Hisoka Morrow, but the exact cause of the incident is still unclear. Standing over the char-grilled Chad Hisoka, Shalnak, which is the guy who originally owns the black voice ability, explains to Kortopi and Machi that around 200 puppets swarmed Hisoka, trying to break him before the bomb puppets could get close enough and explode. Because of that, he presumes that the puppets ended up acting as a cushion to dampen some of the explosive damage, and because of that, ultimately, Hisoka suffocated from a lack of oxygen. With the others having confirmed his demise, they all go to leave, but Machi says that he paid her in advance, which is just like all of his other previous fights in Heaven's Arena, so she'll tend to his wounds before leaving, even if he is actually dead. With the others gone now, Machi closes Hisoka's eyes and studies the severe damage around his neck, noting that she will clean up his face as well. But as she leans in closer, aura suddenly swells around his corpse and Machi is left stunned, quickly remembering that post-mortem Nen can become stronger. As Hisoka's heart begins to beat once more, it's shown that this crazy man is pumping his own heart with his own hand, allowing him to once again suck down onto more of that beautiful oxygen. So, you know how Hisoka at the end of that fight had gone into the fetal position? Well, it's actually shown that he was giving something a go. He knew that if he was going to die, he had to try something massive, and literally on the spot crafted a new ability, asking it to spring him to life, stroke him all over, and revive him as he dies. Now back after the battle, Hisoka's eyes fly open as he coughs and splutters, quickly rising back to his feet. With a surprised look on his face, he sees Machi kneeling beside him and greets her, asking if he really had just died, to which she confirms. She offers to stitch him up, but Hisoka quickly declines, wanting to use bungee gum to stop the bleeding around his neck and face. He then uses Texture Surprise to recreate the flesh that was blown off in the explosion, covering up the damage to his face and making a rubber prosthetic for his left hand and right leg. With Machi not thinking that she's needed anymore, she goes to leave, but Hisoka suddenly appears behind her, wraps his arms around, before then immobilizing her with bungee gum. He asks Machi to tell the rest of the troupe that he will fight any of them until he's killed all of them, utterly enraging Machi. Not listening to her though, he calmly walks away as she angrily yells for him to let her go. Elsewhere nearby, Chrollo, having left the arena, is seen walking through a busy street while talking on the phone with someone about the Kaken royal family. He assumes he'll have a plethora of jewels and riches on board, saying that they're going to plan to steal all of it. Chrollo, who's actually talking to Shalnak right now, asks him if he wants his cell phone ability back, but says that the antennas are gone. However, Shalnak says that he's fine for now. Hanging up, Shalnak wonders why Kortopi is taking so long in the bathroom. Maybe it's because he's having a fat dump. But anyway, as his phone begins ringing again, he pays utterly no attention to it as he suddenly sees Hisoka leaving the bathroom carrying something in his hand. Immediately, he darts towards the now revived Hisoka, who notices him tossing Kortopi's head towards him. This absolute muppet Shalnak quickly catches it, and as he looks at the face of his friend, Hisoka dashes forward and knocks him to the ground with an extremely powerful strike. Moments later, a beaten spider is seen strung up and tied to a swing, with the other spider just dropped down below him. Gleefully, Hisoka proudly says, 2 down, 10 to go. And that finally brings us to the very end of what is the Hisoka versus Chrollo beatdown inside of Heaven's Arena. And his first little whack off the top of these spiders. I'm super happy to see Hisoka finally doing his thing and getting away from the kids and actually fighting adults for a change. It's absolutely amazing. I love it. I love it. If you guys want to see more stuff like this, then do what I said. Subscribe and push this video to 10k likes. Holy shit, I'm losing my voice right now. And let me know what fight you want me to cover from Hunter x Hunter next down in the comment section below.